they do go into how you don't own anything, and that's more than just you don't really own your home. You know, the government can take it. You don't really own your car. You know, they can take it. You don't really own your girlfriend or your husband or your wife. They can leave you at any time. You don't really own your dog. You don't really own these things you think you own. Well, of course, that's easy. But what they're talking about really is you, in quotes, this elusive you. You don't really own this body. It's not yours. And in most cases, it has you. This elusive you. It actually has you working for it a lot of times. So to say my body, well, it's as much your body as your boss is your boss. That's the reality of the situation. When you talk about my body, yeah, my boss, same connotations, because you don't own it in the sense that you feel that you own your vehicle. Even you can maneuver your vehicle to a high degree, but even then you don't have complete control over the vehicle. And so the whole point of them saying not self, what is self? Not self would be, well, if I, this elusive I, again, I'm not pointing anywhere, don't have control over this body, then I don't own it. Then it's not mine. Then it is technically ownerless from my perspective. I mean, it just does what it does. Like if you ever had a twitch or anything, normal healthy body, you probably, you're not gonna notice too much out of the ordinary. It's like a healthy body, you don't even feel it. But if you have a twitch or something like that, something that really sticks out is involuntary. Just to remind yourself, or you can use that to remind yourself, like, okay, well, it is sort of ownerless in a sense. It has its own will, in a sense, its own doings. So it's not mine. I can't call it mine. So that's where they get the whole doctrine of not self. This, what you call life, has nothing to do with me. I must be a host, and life must be a parasite. And that's where you get into these complex theologies. Even the original Taoism was sort of closer to the gnosis than what you see in public face. It's very much closer, but you got to really get into those texts. But even, of course, like I said, older than that, because those guys talk about the ancients. So again, we're talking about maybe some of those underwater civilizations that had pyramidal structures, and not everyone in the civilization. I think everyone was probably a laborer, but the elite, the cultivated minds, the highbrow, they probably had access to this, I'm sure, and some of the priest class, as we would call it. But of course, it always gets codified and it gets stigmatized by other factions. That's what happens when you bring this great truth out into the public, and then it gets clothed in something that's only going to confuse a sense-based creature. So, but this science is ancient, and it is a science. It's not a religion. It's a science that becomes a philosophy. Anything with the intellect will confuse. But the point is, I don't own life. This life is not even mine. Nobody owns life in of itself. So you can't lose your life. It was never yours. You can't gain a life. It was never yours to gain. This elusive I is to be seen more like a puppeteer, than a controller, an owner, an appropriator. You know how people talk about certain regions as if it's theirs. Like, oh, the Indians had all this land and the white man came and took it. It's really anybody's land. I mean, you'll see that in the animal kingdom. Nobody owns any land. I know we say that it's a nicety, it's a convention, you have to keep the peace. In the real world, we get it. But in consciousness, in your thinking, you have to understand this. Now, you're not gonna so much try to act this way because there's no reason to. It's about the consciousness. Just becoming clearer. And this is how they call it. This is how you get rich. Now you get above life. And again, you don't have to. This guy asking me, about prohibition, certain things you shouldn't do. It's like there's nothing that you have to do. Knowing is half the battle, like they say in G.I. Joe. And a lot of the knowing has to do with the great matter. As long as you understand that from the deepest perspective, what is called non-being, what is called the Tao, what is called nirvana, even what is called heaven in the highest sense, not in the fictitious sense, is actually what was before creation. And so when you talk about death, when you're talking about people dying, you're not talking about what was before creation or after creation. You're talking about life. Therefore, death is a misnomer, and it's basically a misnomer because we're naturally confused about this situation, because we are naturally designed to do so, because who are we? And again, what do we own? What is confusing us? That presupposes a subject and a predicate. And the subject may not necessarily be the predicate, but the subject does have influence on the predicate, just not full control. And that's what they mean again by not self. Where is this self that, like I said, is sort of a puppeteer of the psychophysical organism? Psychologically, it determines the direction of thought at times. At times. But even then, sometimes you have, like, I can't get this song out of my head. That's because it has a mind of its own. Literally. It has a mind of its own. So where am I? If that thought is thinking itself, where am I then? Am I observing that thought? Okay, well, fine, but I'm not controlling that thought. I can't get this song out of my head, meaning that's not necessarily me, not self. So where am I? Am I inside the body? Maybe. And that's where a lot of people stay. And this is, again, is where you get the dualism, of course, because if I'm inside the body, when it dies, I'll go somewhere else. Because, again, you presuppose that you are indeed inside the body. But on further inquiry, this is not the case. Empirically, you can slice a million directions and you will find no you. There is a perceiving subject that is concomitant with the body, but is not the body, and is not necessarily in the body, and is not necessarily somewhere else. And that's the more complex philosophy when you get into this not self doctrine, because you have two false doctrines, they say. There's the one theory that there's something inside the body that is me. Then there's the other false theory that there's something outside the body that is me. And these constitute the two false views. And again, this is dependent on the philosophy of dependent origination. This is the conditioned co-production philosophy that people talk about. Well, nothing is independently existent. And I started to go into this on the previous video. You have, again, we can start with the most gross level to make it apparent to your senses. Nutrition. The fact that you have to eat or your life force is extinguished. This means that you don't exist minus corn, pears, apples, chicken corpses, cow corpses, deer, foxes, lambs, fucking rats. People are eating some of the most repulsive, depending on your culture, it's repulsive food items. Again, in quotes, they call creatures food. You know, we have to translate creature to food. This disgusting thing that we do. Let's say we have to do it, but it is disgusting, of course. Spiders, monkeys, whatever. You need this sustenance, which comes in the form of other psychophysical organisms, or let's just say organisms for the most part, just for your life force to stay lit. It's fuel, constant fuel supply, meaning you don't have an independent existence on that level. So to affirm your existence, I want to live, life is good, you're already affirming the existence of the cows. You need the chickens. You need the chickens to breed, of course, and that's what you do. You breed them so you can slaughter them. You're dependent, so you're not independent. So is there a real you? Because minus the externals, which you call external conditions, which are really just the sea of conditions that confuse you into thinking there's a you. This is the thinking. This sea of conditions, there is no you in this sea of conditions. Or if there's a you, it is merely an observer and not a part of any one of them. And that's where they get into dependent origination. Because, again, no chickens, no beans, no spinach. Your life force is gone, no oxygen. The vibration of the molecules, temperature. If they vibrate too fast, you melt. You're goner. So, do you exist as you? You cannot take you out of this context. Because there were people talking about, oh, the flat earth. Some Gnostics found out about the flat earth. And I guess some guys, talking about going to the center and escaping through some porthole in the center. There's no way, because your body is designed for this environment. The oxygen, the carbon dioxide exchange. You have a relationship with this surface. This is your home. This is where you belong. You're not going anywhere. The only way out of here, of course, if you want to use that term as if you're going somewhere else, is through the cessation of the psychophysical organism. You can't take this anywhere. And again, that elusive you. But their whole point was to say you don't fully control it. For that fact alone, the fact that you want to go somewhere else with your body to escape is very telling. It's very telling of your confusion, really. That you don't see the true influence or the true factor in this whole scenario. This is the main factor. So this factor is seen as not self, meaning it shouldn't be a factor, meaning it is not the self, meaning I regard this very lowly due to the fact that I don't own it, on top of the fact that it, again, is a deficiency. It's valueless in of itself. It's dependent on the 10,000 things, as they say. So when they talk about not self, that's what they mean. The psychophysical organism, the mind, is not yours. If you get a disease, again, this elusive view, we know if the body contracts a disease, there's nothing you can do. You can't control it. You can move your arm to the, well, let me back up. Actually, if certain neurons and nerves are destroyed, you can't move your arm, yet you still exist. So this really points to the fact, or the issue, the question, where are you? Because previously I was going to say, you can move your arm, but you can't shrink and fight cancer out of your body. There's no way you can do it. Now, you can practice these healing techniques. We know, eat right, breathe right, prana, chi, and there are men who can be disease-free their entire, let's just say, if they were to, decide to live a couple hundred years on a mountain. This I'm not going to say it's a figment because it is real. I'm pretty sure there are guys who can live to 200, 300 in the mountains with the breathing techniques, with the understanding the breath and the embryonic state. But their psychophysical organism will still perish. So it's not held in the highest regard because it's looked at as something that came and went, something that has a disposable nature due to its the superfluidity in the origination of its creation. It's a superfluous process. How we get here. We can get in here in abundance. Sometimes people start coming in abundance, and that's what you call a population boom. But this whole process they call a conditioned process because it's dependent on antecedent causes and not itself. You weren't born of yourself. Like, I want to live, I want to exist, but before your parents, fused and rejuvenated their substances, and before those substances generated this living body, this brain, this heart, these eyeballs, this flesh, this blood, and before that organism actually, what they say, how they say what came to consciousness, which was actually inside the womb, there was no you wanting to actually be born in the first place. There was no you as you know you, because the psychophysical organism was not matured enough. So you existing has nothing to do with you. So that goes into the whole, the ownerless factor. So you are just drowning in a sea of causes and conditions that begin to dilute your reality and your validity. This is where, again, you get into not self. What is the reality and validity of what I appropriate as myself? That has to do with the body. And again, people go even further with territory and the extended world. So that's the foundation of the thinking. And so the self would have to be something that pre-exists psychophysical development, conception, by nature, by its very nature. And again, what that would be to our conception, for all intents and purposes, it would be the great non-being, non-duality. So non-duality would be the self. The not self would be duality, subject-object, psychophysical development, the experiences we go through daily, and all the emotions, all are tied into the psychophysical organism. So love, hate, jealousy, all these come from the blood. And yet, we can't control the blood. Like, people need blood transfusions. They can't generate blood. You can't reach a state or, transform to a state where you can regenerate your body's blood. As you say, your body. Again, your boss. So again, that's where you get not self, and it's ownerless. Therefore, it's not held in such a high regard. And this is where you get to search for enlightenment. Peace.